think it's better when we get everybody in. That way nobody misses anything. It's going to wait on signal, mindset, location, setting, and directions. Morning, everyone. TGIF. TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. See, when you say God, it's a representation of you. So there's nothing wrong with that settings, right? You're just saying to yourself, wow, Wednesday to Friday, wow, you know? Then you can do whatever you want because Friday's here. Okay, so I think it's extremely important, you know, coming into that settings, because then it comes back to Monday. It says, oh no, I got to go back to work. So Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, once you get to Wednesday, you got 2 days and 2 track line settings. So try to use the days of the week through pi. It's really fascinating because you never get lost once you understand your clocking through travel, through time. See, you have to understand pi is connected to everything. It's connected to your dietary system. It's connected to your immune system. It's connected to your autoimmune system. It's connected to your nervous system. It's connected to your vagus nerve system. It's connected to everything inside, which reflects to everything outside through its own design. So, Light, how you doing? Yeah, everybody wants to know your name. So just give it a nickname. No? Okay, some Gem Rocks. Wow, I haven't seen you in a while. So I think we'll just chat it up for a bit, and then in that set position and track lines, we get in that set location and settings and directions. Yep. Bojan, Nikki, Tina, Andy, Tammy. It's great to see everybody come in. It's like if I start right away, you're missing 5 minutes of class already. Class has already started. So that's 5 minutes of information that you just lost. I said, do we miss anything? Any notes? Can you just relax? Okay, you know, it's only 5 minutes. So try to make my school a little bit more fun for you guys, right? Because it's Friday, right? And you're probably thinking that, oh, Jender's going to take it easy on us. Nope. No. Especially now, because we're coming into highline communications of the mind. We have to reach those conscious stream locations. Now we're in the solar generation panels. So we all have to understand how to use the number sequence location to its settings, right? The position of track lines, because now I have 2 schools and set locations. So in your line center location, it's kind of like the same directions, but different rhythm patterns, different vibration, different DNA. But it's fantastic because it's always come to the same equation, right? Which is your abundance through manifestations. So to understand pi, you need to have pi in everything because it connects to its abundance of manifestations. Without pi, you can't travel. Okay, so it's kind of like in that set location line interference. Let's say you go into a timeline, all right? You go through dimensional space and you go to a store. You walk in and there's no watches. You can't wear a watch. So if you don't have a watch, how are you going to tell time? Right? So you have to understand the importance, why we have these things. You have to understand why we have phones or digital pads or computers, right? So everything that we do is through pi, okay? So it's all about understanding to and from here to here, longitude and latitude. But the longitude and latitude is a line, which is a holograph that you can't see until you blow it up. And once you blow it up, everything starts making sense. Okay? So if you get aligned signature streamlines and set location of travel settings, okay, this is what it's in position to its AI of its awareness. This is where AI comes in all set locations. All right, so how we see things is through the naked eye. Okay, you see a line signature, right? But this is actually this up close. From that to this, okay? So it's what's in between. Okay, it's what's in between. Okay, it's what's in between. Okay, and from that, it comes into this. Okay, and from that, it comes into line settings of this. Okay, little atoms, molecules, and set location. All right, so the line actually becomes an atom lines. It's all set location of settings, right? It's all through adaptation. Okay, so from a line to that, to this, to this. Right, and then when you get to that point, you come into this position locations. All right, so you got the product streamlines. Now it's in separation. All right. Still line calculations and lines through an S-line system, location of system, but it separates the settings. Okay, so everything travels in that position. So it's that, right? So in that signal line interference, you take your position locations to your settings of your avatar, right? And it splits its anomalies. Okay, so each fragmentation line stream takes a factor calculation stream to its location. And what it does is it separates. So it takes the particle streams and separates each one to know exactly what it is through its identification, to its setting, through its code. Okay? And after that happens, in position of track lines, it comes into this location system. Okay? So in that signal line interference, it comes into this system locations. Okay? So what you want to do is you constantly want to bring it in, right? It's like when you take a photo and you blow it up, right? You see the structure of the line around the process, okay? So when you're taking a photo in direct signal to a set location system, it's all calculation modified. So that line rotation looks like this, right? So when you take a photo and you bring it up in close, this is what it looks like. You see the energy field around the person. Okay, when you bring it up close, right? And when you bring it in really close, this is what it is. Okay, and when you bring it in really close, you can see the rainbows of your 12 DNA and set location. Okay, one step at a time. So we all have to understand how to really understand the connections to all settings. When the eyes, you're looking, okay, you got a direct signal. You're looking directly at something or anything in that position location of the system. You bring your eyes in position, okay? So it's a direct panel, okay? And then zoom it in, okay? You zoom it in, and that's what you see through photos. Okay, and that's what you see when it gets closer. Closer, 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 closer. It gets you a deeper core to its stream. So the stream is like this. And then you see the waves, and then you see the grids. Okay. Okay. That to this, which is a hologram. So it's all determination how you see your self-line conditions. Okay. But it's very powerful when you come to this setting. You have to separate it, and then you do it individually. Right? Each atom has its own intelligent line signal. Each waving pattern and direct signal to set locations. All right, so in that travel calculation line and position of travel settings, in all direct signal and position location with operation line interference, we got into this position locations. Right? Now, as we add, because the conception line that streamlines and high center interference get lines of communication with settings. So the dimensional doors open up lines of higher levels of triangulation. So the doors get bigger and wider and more focused and more connected to its setting. So you actually see it more, right? So when your mind consciousness reaches a certain frequency, okay, you get a better understanding of the bandwidth and set location to its system, right? So it comes into this setting. Okay, so you got the bandwidth from here to here. Okay, so it's all about understanding to and from. Okay, arrow goes this way in line positions, right? Calculations of pi, splitting it in position. Okay, and that's at it. Okay, and then you have the zero line operation. Always have to have that because that's your Earth. This is your Earth. Okay, your Earth is always spinning, always spinning, always spinning through a cyclone line set location 2. Its position location 2, your lines of your crown and rotation set location. Okay, so it's really understanding how to use the equal line calculation setting and what's in the space in between. Okay, that's where it comes into the spherical sphere of set locations. And that direct line center comes into position locations to Merkaba, your tesseract, and your tetrahedron of its location. All right? And then it travels out in set position. Okay? All right, so those are just examples. Okay, so in bracket unit and line rotations, you guys are in line set locations of 98 lines now. 98 equals lines of box, now triangulation line sets, and 3 line weather patterns in position of diamond core and reset locations. So this is like the hieroglyphic location of channel lines. So we got a pyramid line, streamline, direction of time sequence, position of travels, calculation line, and position location of its operation of 2 pyramid settings, and direct signal. All lines rotation surface, triangulation of 3 sets in high position. All right. 3 line setting, 6 in position, 7 in rotation, 8 in the center, and 9 in line rotation. Now, the triangulation ring line set location setting, the mind of consciousness is 9 center, 9 operation, 9 surface, 9 locations, right? Indicate line of rotations, and we take the 4 nines into 0 lines of rotation, and we platitude as lines at high center lines of 4. Now, the correlations of the north sets position locations of the east into west and is south line calculation stream. That direct signal line can high center interference into 3 nines, puts position locations into 0, 0, 0, and 3 on top signal line calculation setting, calculation line direct setting, and high center interference into 7 in line communication, 7 in track communication of set locations. Okay, down by equation. All right, so in fusion, is understanding the connections to your battery reset lines. And this is a program line calculation line stream interference of a documentation stream. Now it redirects signals and position location at 3 line settings. That opens all communications to dimensional round lines and center positions of operation. Okay, down by equation. Okay, that's going to travel line stream. Now, the center position location of bracket lines, we set up 4 channel stream locations in high position location center. The operation line, center line interpretation sets the triangulation line position to its pyramid line and set location of center position. Now, the center position line calculation streamlines and high center interference of flux capacitor. Flux capacitor lines its set location lines to the energetic wall, the epigenetic center, and position location to its systems in set position of operation. Now, it gets complicated. Now, we all have to understand the travel setting line and positions. So in that correlation lines, it comes into its dimensional door and 3 line centers. Okay. So if you look at the cloud line, you can actually see the position location of its dimensional doors, opening up signals and high position location of travel lines, indirect signal location system, and 4 lines of calculation to its position of triangulation. Okay. Now, when you open up the center line rotation, this is where it comes into the double helix and the center line rotation interference. So we take the Fibonacci's, 3 lines, calculations of 4. 4 equals lines of 3. Now that's positions of 4, equal lines of 3. 7 and position of center operations circle, and line position of center and communication system and position of balance. Now the balanced single line of rotation interference. So we take the 3 lines of 3 zeros on the bottom, equal line calculation setting, work about position of north, west, south, and east, and position of traction. directing line centers. Now, inline rotations, we take the north, east, west, and south in a diameter line, shift line, and 2 hemi-syncs and line calculation setting in directions of 2 solar panels in red light condition high system, and 3 line circles, lines, and line positions into ozone, line calculation of 12 lines, in position of 24. We got a 48 line center, set a position of 72 system in position locations into walking surface and dimensional door lines into 144 track communication. Okay? It's complicated. All right? But in that high interference, you just really have to understand how to use your calculation lines of your clock line centers and high set location system of your 7-digit code stream locations. Okay, all 3-dimensional line streams. The mind of consciousness is reaching a higher calculation. You have to learn how to get into recharge and know exactly what you're seeing through its dimensional door lines and set location system of your cerebros. Okay? So the actual epigenetic center is the cerebro. Okay? It's just a dome. That's all it is. It's just a dome. Okay? It's just a dome. That's all it is. Nothing else. Now, once you understand that, then you understand the walk surface and set location of settings. You have the 0 line ground lines and set locations. But the measure of the correlation ground line has to reach the 24 line settings, 24, 48, 72, and a walking system of 144 puts the position of crystal grid and platform communication. Now, once you get in the position of the platform, it travels lines. Okay, it reaches higher position locations. Now, every time you're going through plateau or platforms, you're changing your thought lines. So it's changing your videograph screens and position location, how you see line communication of your thoughts in direction of time sequence. Okay. So let's say you got a picture line, center line, and position locations of your child going to the park, and that line interference, and then you see your mother watching you in set location to its settings. There's 2 frame line centers at 3 positional plateaus. Now, in that direct saying the line position locations opens up another portal of communication into another dimensional realm of space location. Okay? It's complicated. All right? But you really have to understand how to get into the plateaus, because the thing is the dimensional door needs a plateau so we can understand the structure of the set location line settings. But it's very powerful when you come to set location system. So you have a 24 clock line, a 48 line window. Let's change the colors and graph screens. All right, so that position is a 24, 48, 72 track communications, right? 3 clocking centers, okay? 48 graph in one line, okay? 72 computer in line position, and you got your 24 clock line of communication, okay? So you have to learn how to use that. And once you reach the 24, 48, 72, and 144, then you understand the correlation setting of the foundation graph lines. Now, the higher self has to understand the foundation of the plateaus, exactly the dimensional doors that it's going through, and set location to its system of track communications. Okay. All right. So in that line position locations, we come into this position lines, right? So the dimensional doors get wider and bigger in set locations, right? What does that indicate in line interference? Pi. Okay. So it's like your doors get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So when it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, your position of your mainframe, of your mind, of your consciousness gets bigger, and the expansion of its space through its streaming. Okay. That's the 3 set line calculation setting positions of pi. Right? Power over 7. Okay. And position location lines location to a 7. All right. 2 7-line signals line and rotations to its set locations, right? 3 pi direction of timelines and high center interference of streamline calculations of dimensional doors that you're opening up higher levels of space of conscious locations. Okay? All right, so in that position, we go into the symbolism. Now, the symbolism line position of track line gets into higher calculations. All right, so once you get the plateaus and the ground lines, let's change the stream location setting directions. It rotates its spin lines in high setting, okay? So in that system, high line rotation, you got in your 24, 48. The plateaus are coming in position of attractions, right? So you have to understand each one. So this has a dimensional door, This has a dimensional door. Let's start with 2. All right. Now, the calculation setting is the magnetic highway. All right. That's on the universe line to universe location system. Now, the track communication comes in indications to your figure 8 in line rotation to its settings that sets up its position location of track lines in line rotation positions to its atom of rotation surface and all direct signal to its location. Okay? So in that track communication line settings, you got 4 waving line circles. Okay? Now, if you really understand the dimensions and vibrations of space discoveries, you understand the point systems of its space and set location. Right? So in that line rotation interference, the dimensional doors change directions, okay? Change directions. Let's get into a line calculation streamline. Dimensional door, so you can actually see it. Dimensional door and dimensional door. You get a dimensional door ground lines, rotation surface. So I've got line, center line, and position locations into 4 plateaus line stream, okay? Into figure 8 lines into flywheel line rotation surface and direct signal. So you have to know exactly what you're doing when you're sleeping into panels of communication of dimensional door lines and set locations. All right. So it's all of the levels of indication, guys. It's very powerful when you come in that settings. Okay, so in that position of track lines, the pi positions the track's communication to its setting. Okay. Let's see here. Inline rotations to track communications. Yeah, don't worry about that. It's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It's right after class on just clicking on TikTok platform. It says Monday and Wednesdays Q&A. So in that track communications, you get implanted 2 lines and 2 bracket surface. So the reason why you have bracket lines is because you're dealing with space and because you're dealing with time. Now your position locations comes into 98 line settings, equal line calculation settings, and line position location to a system and travel calculation. Now, in that direct signal, we set up a high set location lines in direct signal to its position. Now, in that line rotations, we come into 2 atom line rotations one way and the opposite way location setting that puts up the solar generator line streams. So it comes into this positions to a capsule of communication. Now, in that direct signal line position locations, you have to understand the indication to its setting. So this is where it goes in position location to its triangulation. The triangulation realigns its equal line calculation setting, okay, and what's above and what's below in rotation surface. There's always a circulation line calculation setting and position of travel lines. The reason why it has a center line and an equal line so it can set up a platform of its 144 in crystal grid location, right? So in that indications, you have 2 panels of streamlines, setting position of track communications, all right? Now in that position locations, you use position locations, you can use 3, 6, and 9, okay, and then 9 at the bottom, and then 12 at the top. That indicates line position of the triangulations in the split line center and set locations. Now, what happens in that line rotation interference, once you understand the clocking lines of 0 to minutes and positions of hours, it changes its dimensional line shifts in your solar direct signal and set locations. So it changes the plateaus and sets up its dimensional doors in line rotation and set locations. Okay, so that indicates the high center line positions to higher levels of universe line conditions of galaxies and set location to a system. Okay, because you guys are lines of 4 into 4 line signals, okay, which is your solar plex. So the recognition calculation line setting has to really understand its track communication of its intelligence inside position. Okay. Now, understanding that lines because you're 98 line rotations to a system line conditionized system. So in that line rotations, we take the 1, 0, 4, 4. Okay, so that's 10 lines of set lines and galactic family line rotations into 4 generation streamlines and 4 locations. So we circle the line communication and traveled right through lines of 6 that center lines and set location at 12 and travels line centers at 3 and line position locations into 7 and 7 lines of 6 and 9 position of center and position location of yin and yang. Okay, very complicated stuff. All right. Whoop, whoop. So you really have to understand your dimensional line streams, how it connects to your system when you guys are in recharging. Okay. So it's important you understand the dimensional doors that are connected to the cerebral, that are connected to the placebo, that are connected to the cortex. We'll get into the cortex line set location system, but you have to truly understand the base foundations of the mind that sets all calculations to your perimeters. Okay, you really have to understand the foundations of protection, especially when you're going to higher line calculation settings and going through higher position locations of dimensional doors. All right, because now you're 98 line settings of phenomenal line rotation of center communications. All right. So recognizing the wind factors in set position locations, the track to its calculation stream location, adding frame lines. Now in that direct signal, we set up more panels of communications. We change the line signal of its angle. So this is where it comes into a timestamp. The team has to really get into position of track lines and timestamps. Okay, timestamps puts your track communication line settings to its edit. So this edits your volumes and communications to your settings in track communication. Okay. All right. So in that symbolism, we come in track communications. All right. I think it's incredibly important to know how to use your pi position to its settings. All right. So we have pi calculation lines, center position location operation. So let's start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 pi, right? There's 8 pi. Now think of a line, sent line interference and travel calculation streamlines and set positions. All right. So we got 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. Okay. We got 2 hours. Okay. We got 3 hours. Okay. We got 5 hours. Okay. We got 7 hours. Okay. And we got 9 hours. Okay. That's all through clocking, right? Now, the mechanism line interference, the set location of ground lines has to rotate the spin cycles, directing signals, line rotations, and position location to its centers, and all port of communication to its system. Now, the track communication lines its direct system. So that's 15 line streams, okay, eagle-eye contributions of box in one panel of communication, right? So in that line interference, that's the 30 line rotation, eagle lines of the sun. So the sun lines eagle lines of its moon in line rotations to its set location, right? So it gets more complicated because now you have to understand the clock lines of pi in position to your solar streams. It's redirecting signals to higher levels of consciousness, how to go through dimensional line stream interference into galaxy line settings, okay, and set location to a system through clocking, right? So in that track communication line center, let's say it takes 60 minutes to get to plateau line rotation. So that's 2 platforms of communications that you went through and 2 line positions of dimensional doors and set locations. Okay? So you really have to understand the graph of the clock lines of the galaxy line system. This is a galaxy clock. Okay? Very powerful, this set location of cerebros. So in that direct signal, we set up line communication in setting. Okay, let's go into the darker streamlines. So you actually see what I'm doing in rotation surface and direct signal to its position of travel calculation. Okay? All right, this is very complicated, guys. You have to be ready for that because you have a quiz coming up. Okay, so in that system, so what you're doing is you're taking the 15 minutes, you're taking the 30 minutes, you're taking the 60 minutes, and basically what you're doing is you're traveling through it. So each clocking line's at 15, needs a 24 ground, 48, 72, and 144 crystal grid. So it all has to come together as one position. And that one position opens all track communications to higher levels, higher calculation lines, travel position locations to its set system, to its track communication. Okay? Very powerful in set position locations to a clocking all through galaxy line settings. Okay? It's extremely complicated, guys. So that's why you have to understand the seconds, the minutes, and the hours. Okay? The seconds on pi, the minutes on program, and the hours on position location of center. So in that line rotations to a system, you really, really have to understand the track communication to its line settings. Okay? Okay. And the high line interference of travel calculation to a streamline position of operation. This opens all signals and your settings. Okay, so where are we in track communications? All right, so we got some new lines, high center interference. Coming in position location of track lines. Okay, let's see here. Hendo, how you doing? Yeah, any messages goes through TikTok Live, guys, okay? You don't ask questions when you're traveling because it disturbs the channel communications to the team, okay? Try to get used to that setting, okay? The only thing you concentrate on is you in school, right? No chattering to everybody else, okay? So you really have to understand, like, that you're trying to get your position locations, how to get into your navigations of your system. You have to get into your own telepathy. Okay, the team communicates to each other through its telekinesis. They don't chit chat. Okay, so that's what you have to get out of. This is not a volume line interference of physical adaptation. This is a mind collaboration, line setting, location, and navigation. It's knowing how to use your consciousness through the set locations. Okay, thank you very much. So in that position of track line, that's going to center off and travel its position locations. Gone, but still there. Okay, so the time sequence, we go through line positions. The center line rotation sets all calculations to its setting, and two-track communication to solar streams in all direct signal to its reflection to its location. Okay. Now, in that line rotations, you really, really have to get your clock lines. The importance is getting the 24 ground lines, the hemisync location on left and right, space and time, right? So each one has a plateau. So when you have that plateau and you have the 0 grounds and you have your 24, your 48, your 72, and your 144, then you can get in position locations and set up the dimensional doors. They come in your set line calculation system right away to track communications to its setting. Okay? That's through two solar streamline settings. Now, in that direct line center, inline rotation interference, you come into bandwidth. The bandwidth, the dimensional doors get bigger. They get bigger, okay, over time. So that's in longitude and latitude, okay? So we all understand the position longitude and the bandwidth and position of track lines in that direct signal to set locations, okay? So for an example, getting into that position locations, you really understand setting communication and setting through time, equal lines of frame. Now you're using one frame at a time, set location setting and direct signal and set locations. 1 equals line settings. Teleportation string lines, equal line calculation setting. Docile communication 007. Okay. Now line set location 7 crosses line stream. That's box, equal lines of triangulation. All right. Triangulation goes into the triangulation line centers of the box. Now really understand how to use the masculine and the femininity in one cycle. Center direct signals sets communication line directions to your sonar panels in high position of travel calculation to a system. Now, in that travel lines, the triangulation sets position location to its tones. There's 3 triangulation line stream locations, all right, in directions. Now, the triangulation line sets all calculations to its box of its frame that changes its direct signal and set location settings to its frame of position location of traction. It's very complicated stuff, all through 007. Okay. Now that's just through one frame through teleportation. Okay. Now we all have to recognize how to work at this. Really understand how to use the volume. So volume calculates line centers and acceleration. Acceleration lines factor. Now the factor calculates equal line calculations of frame. Frame lines its box and set location to its triangulation. Triangulation line sets high position location to your pyramid. Your pyramid's always above the system, okay, all through calculations. It has to because it's in line set location of dimensional doors. That opens up the visionary cortex of set location. All right, so in that line center line interference, we scan line rotations to set in position of operation. The triangulation line sets across this stream. Now this redirects signal locations how you use your communication to its settings. Now position of track communications comes into 3 lines of atom. 1 position, 2 positions, and 3. All right, it's that location. Okay. Now in that direct signal, we come into the center line. You have to go back to the ground line and set location line settings because you're changing your thoughts. Every time you change your thoughts, you got to go back to the grounds of the mind because the mind sets up new plateaus, a box, in a formation location, equal line calculation setting, vast through volume, line calculation to its atom, equal line conductance, high interference, new formation location setting, and direct signal to travel communication line interference and direct location system, all through calculation. Okay. So it's important you understand how this all works, all through positions of frames. Okay. Okay. So in that track communications, we take the 98 center, equaline calculations of box, and triangulation. All right. So in that line interference. So understanding telepathy waveline signatures. So the triangulation is the female, and the box is the male. All right. So the box is communicating with the triangulation, and the box is communicating with the male triangulation line system. So it's all about understanding how you're communicating with male or female, female or male. It doesn't matter. What matters is, do you understand the 24 hemisyncs line set location system of 2 panels of operation? Setting that position of track lines sets position to your flux capacitors, to its female and its male. Setting direct signal location, are they communicating with their sun or are they communicating with their moon as set location of travel settings? So if the female is communicating with the moon, it's all levels of dimensional line center that splits its anomaly and set light calculation setting to its atom of its rotation. And that direct set location of the male is communicating with the sun. The sun, it sets its position location line setting, and the moon is behind the system to its locations. Remember that. If you want to indicate lines of intent and you just want to communicate with the sun line, the moon's always going to be there, but the moon's going to be in the back. So in line rotation center interference, this is what it looks like inside location of a system. Your intention to your influence is truly important to understand through its avatar line position location operation system. This is the sun in line position location, and the moon is in the center position. So the moon is here in position. Okay, it's there. So the actual moon is here. The actual base of the moon is here. Okay, so all you're seeing is a reflection of the moon set locations. Okay, so you're not actually moving the moon. The moon is the base, which is very powerful. And this is way, way beyond technology. You have a moon base. So the only thing that you're moving is the perception of the avatar of its own set location. Okay, so you're not actually moving the moon in that rotation, right? So the base of the moon stays there, same with the sun. But the sun and the moon are always together, creating dimensional and solar sails. That's how you see half moons. Okay? Half moon. All right? So in that set line position of track communication line set location, the moon sets the high position location to its high setting. It opens all communications, all direct signal to its position, to its reflection of its operation surface into its Earth location. Okay? So it's very complicated what we're coming into, right? You really have to understand the solar generation lines at 4-4 now, because it's directing your signal line position location operation. Now, there is no school tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday line positions. I want you guys to get into your quiz lines. We got position of all calculations on Monday. We go into 99. All right, so that's 2 energy watt string lines and set location to your settings to your avatar. So what this is going to do is going to do a clean sweep in the cobweb line string locations to your mind capacitor line settings. So it's like washing the car line position location, changing the code sequences and line rotation to the calculation string line into its dimensional line rotation to its settings, all through calculation. Okay. So you really have to understand how to really get in that set location when you're recharging, knowing exactly what you're seeing. Because you could be sleeping for 3 hours. You can be sleeping for 4, 5, 6, 7, depending on your day, right? In that set locations. But you're always working with 24. You're always working with 48. 40 equals box frame. 24 equals clock. Okay. 72 is your computer, your CPU line settings, your avatar line positions. And the 144 is equal to your crystal grid that sets up the platform for the avatar to travel through its dimensional door setting. Okay? So really connect with that set locations, right? So you all have to understand how this all works now, because it's going to get extremely complicated, right? Because the conscious string line is changing the connections to your placebos. Now the placebo is causing an effect. Okay, this is calculates over pi. Now this redirect signal location setting, the power over 7 in line position location of a system, right? So NAT track communication line direct setting, high position location to a system of a split anomaly. Setting track communication as sunline opens all track communication system to its operation. Okay? Now, in that system outline rotation interference and position location, so pi is just a door. That's all it is. It's just a door. It's two split doors. So line connections high interference is flux capacitor, right? To its ground setting of its rotation surface to your Earth. This is your Earth in set location. Okay? That's how it's set up. Okay, so pi is actually the dimensional door that you go through setting. You go through setting. Okay, that's all it is. So you start off the platforms, and once you get to higher line interference, you don't need the 24, 40, 72, 144 because you already understand what you are doing, which is already done. Okay, but you have to get into structure first to understand that it needs a grounds. It needs its grounds, and it needs its grounds of the mind system, which is plateau. Okay, you need plateau. You need plateau to know exactly what you're doing through dimensional line system. And then once you understand that, the plateau gets bigger and bigger, and the dimensional realms get bigger and bigger through travel communication. Okay? Very powerful applications. This is your Earth. Okay? So now you understand what pi is. Pi is just a split anomaly. That's all it is. Two-dimensional doors in applications. That's it. That's all it is. Plateau, there's the 144 crystal grid. Okay? That's all it is. So now you understand line and position. You come into this line set locations. Okay? Flux capacitor. Whoa, look at that. Directing lines to center. This is equal line calculation setting. This are your equal line positions of what's above and what's below. Longitude and latitude and set location of your system. Okay? So you truly have to understand how to see yourself in set locations. So you're always working with your Earth. This is your Earth. Okay? This is your Earth in set location and setting. Always working with the Earth because it's connected to your higher self. So your higher self is here in set position. It's here, or it's here. Three-line communications, right? So, and your avatar is basically up here creating new anomalies of new platforms of communication setting direction. So in that system, calculation, three-line waving lines of telepathy and telekinesis. Okay? So in that direct line interference, you're telling the avatar to set up plateaus of higher levels of dimensions, of dimensional doors through pi and position attraction. Okay? Try to understand that through position attraction communications. But you have to understand the position locations through pi, through its indication, right? And then you understand the panels. Okay, and then you understand the center. And then you understand your Earth, the rotation surface, and supposition of operation. Okay? So that's what your avatar does. Okay? But it syncs in with position of the psychological line connections to its higher self. Okay? So you have to really recognize what you're doing through pi, right? Because what you're doing is you're creating dimensional doors to go through. Okay? So once you understand your clocks, your windows, your computers, and your crystal grids, now you're ready to go. Okay? So now you understand the process, what the higher self and what the avatar does in set location system. It's you dealing with you, but a higher version of you. So the avatar knows exactly what it needs to do, but it needs to listen to what you are doing. So you have to understand just the process of the body and reaction of consciousness. That's all it is, nothing else, nothing more. The avatar does all the work in set location system. All you have to understand, do you understand what is going on with this equation? To its pi. That's set locations. Okay? All right. So now you're in that line rotation interference. So you come into 99 on line centers on Monday and 5 through calculation streamline in mind of consciousness, all right, to the mainframe that puts positional case to its brain circuit line rotation. This puts track communication to higher levels of conscious line calculations of pi into dimensional door settings through your cerebros, okay, and cortex location. All right, so I think we're really getting into that settings here. How does everybody feel about that? You really get a better connections to your settings. You really understand, and the thing is, everything is connected to all levels of you: hearing, seeing, feeling, touching, tasting, and knowing who you are, right? Really directing your system locations. That's why your ears are ringing. So if your ears are ringing, it's connecting high interference to your avatar. You understand the communication line, interference line, track communication lines, the airline rotation interference, right? That's the avatar sending you a message. Did you get it? It's locations, and you send it back. You send it back through you, right? So knowing that you received it through you, which is a higher level, higher version of you. Okay, no more problems with the ringing ears or sonar or echo or line position or anything calculations. Just as long as you know the right is calculations to its higher self and left is calculation of space of the avatar. If it's both single location system, you're integrated as one. So here's all calculate and modify how to use your set location settings to really understand how to compute its system locations of communications, how to connect line setting locations to your higher self through your avatar, through its data, a process calculation of its communications. All right? Okay. It's really interesting. We look at those location settings and directions, right? I know. Especially for you, Hemdo, because the thing is, you have to understand your Asgard line streams all through Plateau, right? Just as long as you know that Asgard is the center communication of all operation, right? It's a center communication of all operation, okay? Center communication of all operation line system and track communications. Okay, that's Asgard. Now, when you get in that line rotation to its settings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh my gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, what's going on here? 4 fingers and a thumb? What's going on? So now you understand this at location line centers, why you have 4 lines of 5, why it's connected to the HLX lines in position locations to its calculation line centers, baby, child, teenager, adult set locations. That's all it is. So redirecting line centers at clock lines, center position location 24. 24 equals baby, direct location settings. And a line on rotation to child. Child gives line calculations of 48 window lines. All right. So set line position of track lines. Now, line centers a teenager comes in a teleportation stream, which is very hard to understand as a location system. So teenager years calculates modified to time zone. Time equals zone in line rotations. And positioning the adult is the center positions to its mind, reaching eco calculation setting into its visual, into its imagination, into its phenomenon, into its set location. Okay? So we all have to understand how this all works, right? How you have 4 fingers in 5 line system, 6 in activation and 7 in rotation. 7 bodies of water, 5 of atmosphere lines, higher self. Okay? 13 is the balance. Anything above that is the avatar. Okay? It's very simple to understand these line settings. Ground lines, this is your Earth. That's your Earth, right? Setting direct signal. Can high center position of track lines. So let's say line interference. Okay, so the actual higher self is the Earth, guys. See, you have to truly understand how it correlates to set line high direct system location, the conversion location, the heart. So the center position locations, your avatar is always, always in space. Always, always in space. Okay, so it's above the system. Okay, that's below the system. Okay, what's above? Okay, and what's below? Okay, is the equal of its center lines of a space in between to its set location of travel lines at set location. Okay, so we all have to understand how this works. You're tethered to the communication lines of its Earth. All right, so it sets off wave lines. Let's say it sets off an alpha line. Alpha line communications, all direct signals. The avatar picks up the signal, right? Gets in that set locations, telling you to go over here. All right, setting up a new operation surface, right? You get a delta wave, direct line connection setting into a call line. All right. This is a call sign. So it's a location line setting. It's over there. All right. So that's how it indicates the set locations of the earth line rotations. This is where it comes into the ring and ears. So the actual communication line setting, the earth actually does have ears. Okay. Two atom lines sync high center line interference and left and right in communication setting and position location to its setting. Left and right. Okay. So your earth has definitely ears if you want to get it metaphorically. So we understand that is to understand your frequency line set location or anything with this location line settings. So it's very powerful for what the avatar does for you in set locations. Okay? We all have to start at the basics. The basics is the foundations of everything. Okay? So really understand that is that you're working with the earth all the time because you're on the earth. So once you realize you are the earth, you realize, wow, it's me that's inside. I understand what the higher self is through foundations of 12. Anything above, you're dealing with the avatar. Okay? You have 114 chakra line settings locations in your system. Okay? And track communications. All right? Don't get confused line setting. Now, in that line rotation interference, the higher self only has 12. Do you understand that? It does not have 114. It's the avatar that's 114. It's the avatar that has the convergence of the heart. So it's you that is reaching a higher versions of you. For your higher self to be in 114 line setting, you're going to be so complex in set location of earth in set position. Okay? So there's only 12 foundation graph lines of chakras in the higher self that stays in its formation. So its job is to protect its own system. Okay, through the securities, through the panels, through the rotation, through the operation, or anything in calculation. Okay, so you're constantly protecting your light. Okay, of your earth. Your earth has a light core. We'll get into that later, but you have to really understand the 24, 48, 72, and how to set up panels, how to set up plateaus of platforms, of dimensional doors of pi, so you can travel through to higher levels of cerebral cortex of its mystical cortex stream location setting and direct system. Now, when I did space discoveries in time zones, you learn how to travel through vortex locations, right? And everything through matrix locations, how you go from one cloud to the next, right? So it's important you understand space discoveries because that's what you're going through every single time you go through recharge. Okay? You have to understand the importance to know exactly what you're seeing in your own space of division location, of its location, of its time. Okay? Space division location of its time. That's the most important thing. Okay? So now you understand why the earth is in set location setting in a 12 foundation graph line, because that's where it is in your Schumann resonance. It's not any higher, it's not any lower. It's you balancing out your emotional system of your set location setting. All right. If your earth is here in high line rotation, this is your earth, right? Let's say you get in position locations, right? You're having a great day, la da 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 da, you're happy, right? And so in that line interference, this is normal in set locations, right? So let's say you get stressed out. Right? What do you think you're doing to your earth? The rotation spin is going to go the back way line rotation. So in set line calculation setting, it's going to reverberate line rotation and center calculation setting and offline its position location to do its perception. Okay? So it's important you understand that your earth has to be in a rotation spin in yin and yang. Okay? And that line, the graph line, stays line, center line positions of balance. Anything through alpha, anything through delta, anything through theta, anything through omega, and set location setting. Okay? So that's the true understanding what the earth is in frame position to its operation. Okay? So anything you do through the earth, you're affecting your avatar line position location to your future adaptation locations of your manifestation. Okay? So if your avatar is here and you change the frequencies, the avatar goes down. Okay? This is what happens. And you keep doing that, it goes down. So in perception line settings, because I know, because I've been through it. So in that line rotations, your avatar is on the earth perception, and it can't be there because it has to be in a certain frequency to survive. All right, so there's a 3 triangulation line set of high set location system. All 3 line settings are what you did through your avatar. So if the avatar sets communication and center lines its calculation and sets position to its earth perception line settings, you can't merge your higher self and your avatar into one. It's catastrophic in set locations. Okay? So I just want you to understand the importance why you have to be at a certain frequency. Keep yourself lines of positive in all line position, your vibrational graph lines. Keep the avatar in a certain space in division line setting in all set locations. Okay? Hooah! Whoa! Massive, massive, massive information to its setting locations. Okay? How are we all doing so far? Getting a better understanding now, the importance, why you have to be positive. Okay? Not 75% of the time, not 85% of the time, not 25% of the time, 110%. Always, always in set locations. So in that line rotation interference, stating the fact that there is no way that you can get 100% on a test, that is not true. So that 99.9% is 1% over pi. Okay? So that 1% takes over your set location setting of your behavioral set location. Right? So if you go above 99 into 110, the avatar stays in its setting. Then it goes into 120. Then it goes to 130. Then it goes to 140. Pretty soon you're up to 1 million % of positive position location and all set location. Okay? So anything below that, the frequencies of pi deteriorates its clocking system. So you go back in time. Okay? Through your avatar. So your avatar goes G, 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 G. You don't want that. Okay? So in that line interference, this is where it comes into set location system. Your avatar is here. Just show you exactly, okay? To the position, there's your higher self. This is what happens in line of rotations. Higher self, avatar. So if the avatar basically goes down in this positions, like this, it sets up a glitch line center to your higher self. So now they're connected to each other. If the avatar goes below the percentage of pi, that's where it comes into negative. Negative 0. Right? So we all have to understand what that means. Once you get past the negative, it's an overdraft. Everybody knows what's an overdraft. You're over. So in that line interference, you're negative over 0, negative over 1, negative over 2, negative over 3. To get back into the positive over negative. So that's what happens to your avatar if it goes below its system in set locations. From here to here to here. Okay? So keep it above the system. Okay? Hooah! How do you like that? How do you like them apples? So now you know what an overdraft is to your avatar. Isn't that exciting? You go over the amount, and then you're going to come back into positive. See how that works now? So what do you think about that? All right. So try to understand the importance, especially now when the team is reaching higher levels of their conscious location system. Okay? Yes, stay positive, but be above the system. All right? You don't want to be 99.9%. It's that 1% that can basically change everything. If you're above the system, you're fine. But don't be 100%, be 1,000,000%. Right? So you won't have to worry about overdraft. You won't have to worry about the negative cycles. You won't have to worry about its operation system. You won't have to worry about the avatar going to its low frequency lines of its vibration through pi. Okay? Whoop, whoop. All right. So a very powerful class. I hope you guys really got into more line settings in an all set location system. This is how you use it, location setting. How's it any different from anything locations to your banking system through transaction? It's not, is it? All right, so now you understand the process and how this all works, right? Now you get a better view the importance of positive and negative and what it does to your system through emotional line conditions of your mechanisms, of your mind, of navigation locations. Okay? All right. I want everybody to have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you on live. Adios.